Jeff Parker is the author of Where Bears Roam the Streets, Oven Man, and The Taste of Penny. With Pasha Mala, he co-wrote the forthcoming collection of found sports poetry, Erratic Fire, Erratic Passion. And with Annie Leonidas, he co-edited the forthcoming A Manner of Being, Writers on Their Mentors. He's the co-founder and director of the Disquiet International Literary Program in Lisbon, Portugal, which I have attended before, and it's awesome. He grew up in North Florida and went to college in Gainesville, and was the founding director of the Low Residency MFA at the University of Tampa. He currently teaches fiction in the MFA program at UMass Amherst. It's been a dream of mine to bring him here to Orlando to read for you guys. So here is Jeff Parker.
Thank you, Mama. All right. Jared dreams small. Yeah. So we've been doing four readings in 4 days. You know. Yeah, it's pretty fun. I wouldn't do 4 readings in 4 days in 4 different cities with just any degenerates, you know, but like Jared and Ryan and Shane are excellent degenerates, the best kind. We're here tonight to launch Shane's book, and I mean, this is the place to do it because Shane's a Floridian writer through and through. His book's a Floridian book through and through, and best I can tell, this is the best thing going in Florida in terms of literary scenes. So, thanks for coming out. So, it was 1999 in the summer, at about 3 in the morning, and I was walking down the street in St. Petersburg, Russia. There's this main thoroughfare, this famous street called Nevsky Prospect. And at one point, it goes over the Grit of Canal. And the Grit of Canal is sort of this famous canal. If any of you have read Dostoevsky, Raskolnikov walks up and down the Grit of Canal, pondering the murder of the pawnbroker in the water, the color of the pupil of an eye. You know, but Dostoevsky hated the Grit of, and he referred to it as a ditch. But all I knew of it at the time, I didn't know that at the time. All I knew was that we'd heard that the Russian mafia disposed of bodies in the Grit of Canal. And there were always these pensioners who were sitting on the banks with cane poles, dipping their cane poles in and yanking out these small polluted fish, which they supposedly were feeding to their cats and dogs. So we're walking over this bridge, and we hear this splashing in the water. It was me and this Canadian woman named Jennifer, who was there for the same literary program I was there for. And we run to the railing, and we sort of look over the edge, see what this tremendous splashing is. And basically what we see is this dock in front of us that's got about a half dozen completely wasted ship's captains on it. And they've all got bottles of beer and bottles of vodka and wine, and they're cheering and they're yelling. And just at that moment, underneath us passes this huge splashing being in the water. And it's a guy, and he emerges onto this dock. He kind of just flies out of the water onto the dock. And the boat captains just catch him. They pat him on the back. They hand him beer. They're cheersing him, you know. And I mean, I was really impressed by that. And Jennifer, who, you know, Jennifer seemed interested in pretty much every guy at the literary program except for me. So I had been following her around, you know, and she was really impressed by that guy. He was a huge kind of Adonis-like figure. So we went around the corner to this little restaurant called Lima, which we'd taken to going to late at night. I didn't know any Russian at the time. All I knew was the phonetic for the words potatoes with mushrooms, and I could order it there. So I ordered potatoes with mushrooms, and we were sitting outside on the banks of the Griboyedov, having a drink and eating our potatoes with mushrooms. So at 3 a.m., it was in the summers, the white nights in St. Petersburg. So if you've ever been up to Anchorage in the summer or something, basically it's at midnight it looks about like what we got right now. And at 3 a.m., it's a little more purple, you know? It's like a kind of lavender sky. But because St. Petersburg is the exact opposite of that all the rest of the year, it's just shrouded in darkness and snow, you know, the people are just as excited as can be, you know, giddiness reigns. Everyone's on the street, and you can just feel like it totally resets your biorhythms. Like, I didn't even need to sleep. All I needed was vodka and potatoes and mushrooms. And so we're sitting there, and I was telling Jennifer about Russian billiards, which I'd become really interested in. And, you know, Russian billiards is a fabulous game. It's like each table is the size of about 4 American pool tables put together. The balls are 60 millimeters. They're the size of grapefruits. And the pockets are 62 millimeters. It means you got, you know, a millimeter on either side. The sticks are like those cane poles, you know, that those pensioners are fishing the little polluted fish out of the Griboyedov with. So I was telling her some bullshit or another, you know. And the table's as big as the fucking Soviet Union itself. And I hear this voice from behind me say, "You like Russian pool?" And it turned around. We both sort of turn around, and it's that guy who jumped out of the water. He's dressed now, vaguely, but he's still incredibly damp. You know, it was clear that it was him because we could see. And he says, you know, if you like Russian pool, like there's a place right down the end of the block. We can go play. We can go play right now. I'll show you how to play. And I was sort of thinking to myself if this was advisable to go to some pool hall, some huge, strange dude who I met at 3 a.m. who had been swimming in the canal. And Jennifer was like, "Yes, let's go." So, like, all right, let's go. And he stuck out his hand and he says, "My name is Igor." And so we went down to this pool hall. We played till about 6 a.m. He taught me some shots. I was horrible. Jennifer kind of fawned on him, and then I thought we were going to be there all night. But at a certain point, he said, "I got to get up for work tomorrow." So around 6 a.m., he cut out. He said, "Give me your number. I'll call you in 2 days and take you to the Russian bathhouse." So I said, "Okay," and I assumed I'd never hear from him again. So at that point in my life, in 1999, I didn't know anything about Russia. You know, all I knew about Russia was what I had gleaned from the movies Red Heat and Red Dawn and Red October and Reds. And I had a sort of mild curiosity about the strange shape on Gorbachev's head. But I didn't know anything about the place, really. I knew a couple Russian short stories by Gogol and Turgenev, and that's kind of what had drawn me there. But I started going there after that every year. I went there for 10 years, then I spent a couple of years there till I spent some winters there. I got to really know the place, and as I was doing that, I was trying to read the books that would sort of, that would teach me the language, that would teach me about the culture, that would, allow me to understand it. But this funny thing kind of happened in that I was reading all these books, and some of them were really good books, but none of them kind of depicted the world that I saw in front of my face. And mostly, more and more, that world became the sort of the St. Petersburg, the Russia that I knew through Igor, as he became, one of my best friends. Eventually, we'd travel all around the country together in 2008 and 2009, and that's mostly what this book's about. During that global economic crisis. He was really interesting for me because, I was kind of the last generation of the Cold War, so I grew up thinking of Russians as my enemy. He grew up thinking of Americans as his enemy. And, he had sort of taken advantage of all the opportunities that perestroika that new democracy, capitalism had offered him. And at the age of 30, he was unemployed. He lived with his mother. He had no romantic or career prospects to speak of at all. So in a way, for me, the story of Russia became a story of my friend. And the funny thing is that while I thought I'd never hear from him again, he actually called me 2 days later. And he said to me, "Hey Jeff, are you ready to go to the Russian bathhouse?" Now I had a very abstract concept of what the Russian bathhouse was. I knew there was steam involved, but beyond that was pretty much all I knew. So he said, meet me at 5 Corners. It was this kind of famous spot in St. Petersburg where 5 streets converge in one intersection. So I met him there, and there he was, and he was wearing this big backpack, And he said, "Hey, how's it going?" And he led me down the street. We took a left on Dostoevsky Avenue. It was actually on Dostoevsky Avenue. We went down, and we went through this big steel door, and you walk into this. You know how you walk into an indoor pool? You immediately understand there's water there. You walk into this dampness. And then we walked upstairs. And there was these really skinny, tattooed guys standing there who checked us in. They gave us sheets and towels and slippers. I would come to find out that the most common job for ex-cons in Russia is bathhouse attendant. But they were really nice guys. They checked us in, and they gave us these cubbies that had these leather benches. And we went in there, and Igor just immediately stripped down, tied this sheet around him. So I just followed suit, stripped down, tied that sheet around me. And then he started emptying out the contents of his backpack, And first come out two wads of birch branches, big wads like that, real bushy. And then comes out a whole dried smoked fish. And then comes out this little package of squid jerky, which tastes exactly like salted rubber bands. And then, most disturbingly, comes out this little vial of eucalyptus oil. And I'm like, oh, fuck, what is that for? And so he says, "All right, come with me." And he grabs these birch branches and the eucalyptus oil, and we go into this bathing area. He fills up this bucket with water, sticks the birch branches in, dumps the eucalyptus in there. And then we walk through the bathing area, and he opens the door to the steam room. And that was just it was like 10 times what it had been when we walked in. This wall of 200-degree steam hits you in the face, and you kind of have to push past it a little bit. You walk up, and the further up you walk up the steps to the deck area, it gets hotter and hotter. And there's this bench, and he says, "Put the sheet down and lie down. In 5 minutes I will come." And then he left. So I put the sheet down, and I lie on my back. And I'm just sort of lying there, thinking, what exactly have I gotten myself into here? And, 5 minutes go by, and true to his word, just like, this is one of the things, he's always true to his word. Just like he called me in 2 days, in 5 minutes he comes in, and I hear the door open, and I kind of look up, and I see him there, and his appearance has changed a bit. He was wearing this conical felt hat with these flaps that went over the ears, had this big red army star on the front of it. He's wearing matching felt gloves, and in each hand he had those birch branches, and they were just dripping with water. He had that sheet wrapped around him and those like $1 sandals that you get from the ex-cons at the check-in. And he comes up the steps, and he's like bright red like a crab, And I was thinking to myself, I just met this guy on the street at 3 a.m. He took me to this criminal mafia pool hall, and now we're in this situation. And I remember so well, like it's so visceral, like I really remember like lifting my head up a little bit and kind of being like, kind of bracing myself. And he came up the steps and he kind of put the birch branches over me and the water was dripping on me and he kind of stirred this just boiling air, over me. And then he said, cover your dick. And I covered my dick. And basically, like, that's the story of, a really important friendship to me, and the story of this weird book I wrote. So, thank you very much. Next up's, one of the best and brightest Florida has to offer.